Hey guys, Yamakiller here, back again with a weekly What to Play video. Usually I'd be going over the 6 main formats, Standard, Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, Vintage, and Pauper, but today we're going to be going over mostly Modern as it's mostly what I've been playing this past week, and since there's been a big shakeup in most of the formats, Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy specifically, I have not played nearly any Legacy, actually basically zero Legacy this week. Only watched a couple of streams, and Pioneer I have not watched anything and have not played anything, so I don't feel comfortable talking about the formats that I have not been playing basically at all, because I will probably give you outdated or misinformation on those formats. Rather, I'd like to mainly look at Modern, where I've been talking to people, playing, watching streams, consuming content, all of these things about Modern, and I'd like to talk to you about how the new Modern landscape looks a bit, and what decks to be thinking about, what archetypes to be thinking about, and how you want to build your deck. Now this is just Eldrazi-tron. I'm just going to use it as a backdrop of some of my ideas. First, you need to have a good game plan, a good idea of what you're going to be doing, a reasonable plan of attack against 3 major archetypes, I would say. And these major archetypes are going to be fairly popular, whether it be the Modern Challenge this weekend, the NRG event, any big events coming forward, I think. Now, the first deck I'd like to talk about is Primeval Titan decks. Primeval Titan decks are going to be fairly big, whether it comes in the form of Amulet Titan or Red-Green Valakut. People are saying that the deck got pseudo-unbanned. Even though Field of the Dead is gone, I think those decks are very well positioned because they had problems with people just jamming Infinite Aether Gusts against them. And with the Uro decks being gone and Control being neutered significantly, I think the Control decks are going to be very untuned, not as powerful and not as big of a problem for these decks. So I think a lot of people are going to be going back towards Amulet Titan, and a lot of people's favorite decks in the past was Red-Green Valakut. Both those decks are going to be very consistently trying to kill you with a Primeval Titan on turn 3 or 4, or with Escape Shift, I guess, out of the Red-Green Valakut as well. So this is a deck that you need to be prepared for out of your sideboard. For Amulet, you can have cards like Damping Sphere. To hit both, you could have, mainly in the red category, you've got Alpine Moon, you've got Blood Moon, you've got Cleansing Wildfire. All these cards are going to be great in those matchups. Out of some other decks, it's not necessarily as easy. For some color listings, I guess you do have Damping Sphere. You do have possibly a pile of discard spells. Those are usually good paired up with a Surgical Extraction effect. Or you could play just a black surgical effect like Lost to Legacy or something along those lines to try and hit either Valakuts out of the Red-Green Valakut deck, or out of Amulet Titan, just try to hit those Primeval Titans. So these are some ideas. You want to have a good either game plan in your main deck with something like Red-Green mid-range with Blood Moons in the main deck, or something in the sideboard that has a dedicated slot or multiple slots, somewhere between 3 to 4 sideboard cards for this matchup. I think it's going to be big coming out of this weekend, and expect to play at least 1 to 2 of your rounds in the Modern event. Second, there's going to be some creature-based aggro decks. Now, this could be anywhere between Burn, good amount of creatures, 12 to 16. It could be Blue-Red Prowess. It could be Mono-Red Prowess. Or it could just be something like Death and Taxes, maybe not necessarily an aggro deck, but more creature-centric decks. And for these decks, you just want to be able to have a good game plan in the form of, possibly some sweepers in your sideboard, Anger of the Gods, Supreme Verdict, or just a lot of good targeted removal spells. Dismember is colorless, great card. Possibly playing a pile of Lightning Bolts and Fatal Pushes is going to be good against these decks. Basically, you want to have a good game plan of having, okay, how am I going to defeat whatever their aggression is, and how am I going to overcome it? And you want to have these good plans. You want to have them not only a good plan, but you want to enact it quick, because a deck like Blue-Red Prowess is going to overtake you incredibly quickly, trying to kill you basically on turn 3 if you do not interact with them a large portion of the game. Things like Humans, if you let it get out of hand, Champion of the Parish, Meddling Mage, all these cards are going to make it so you both can't interact with them, and then you're going to die very quickly as well. So you want to have a good game plan against that, and you want to enact it in a reasonable way. Out of Eldrazi-tron, let's say you have cards like Dismember, Walking Ballista, Karn the Great Creator, All Is Dust. You want to mix up your removal spells as well, and maybe not make your sweepers as known. Maybe instead of playing any of the gods, you play Sweltering Suns if you're playing against a deck like Humans that has Meddling Mage. You want to make sure that you split these cards up. Humans is going to be a big deck back, I think, and making sure you switch up your removal spells that essentially do the same thing a lot of the time, and make sure that you don't get meddling maged out by that deck. And third, there are going to be some graveyard-centric decks. We've got possibly Crabvine, Dredge, even Oops All Spells. I saw Sodek seeing reasonable success with something like that. Basically, having some amount of graveyard hate, a Soul Guide Lantern, some Rest in Pieces. You don't necessarily need to have all of them. You don't need to have 4, 5, 6 pieces of graveyard hate, as usually one piece will be enough against these decks with them being neutered. So I think having some amount of graveyard hate in your sideboard is good. Having some good idea against that, very good. And on a side note as well, from the previous idea from the creature-based aggro decks, make sure you have some burn hate. Burn, very easy deck. It's going to be coming out in full force with Urogon. I think a lot of burn aficionados are going to be coming out again. Make sure you pack your core Firewalkers, your timely reinforcements, your life gain, and anything that seems to be good against their deck. I would pack at least 4 copies in my sideboard as well. Now, I probably didn't go over all the major archetypes, as there's lots of different things going on right now. There's loads of different decks and strategies being played out. It's possible that I could be completely wrong. Maybe creature-based aggro is nothing and everyone's on Primeval Titans, or maybe people are just still trying to cheese people out with Belcher, even with the loss of Simian Spirit Guide. Maybe everyone's going to be on Tron. Maybe everyone's going to be on Rakdos Death Shadow or Grixis Death Shadow. Or maybe people are just going to play whatever tier 2/3 deck that was not very good in the Euro metagame. Maybe people are going to come out full force with Jund, which you'd want cards like some insane sideboard card, maybe not insane, but something like Thragtusk, Ugin the Ineffable out of Tron, maybe just some very, very good value cards to get ahead of them. So it's really hard to necessarily pinpoint exactly what you want to be playing for exactly a deck to be playing. Personally, I'm going to pick Humans, as I know it can be rough against a deck like some red-black mid-range Jund, some just removal-heavy decks, but I feel comfortable. I've played Humans a lot in the past. I don't necessarily feel as comfortable with Eldrazi Tron in the open metagame because Chalice of the Void can range from good to awful. You also have a lot of mulligans that kind of end yourself on the spot. And if you don't necessarily know if Chalice of the Void is going to be great, I wouldn't necessarily play the deck. But to that extent, personally, I'm going to go with Humans. Has a reasonable matchup against Titan, has meddling mages and such. It does have a difficult time against a deck like Blue-Red Prowess, as they kill you very quickly, and some of your taxing effects don't necessarily do the job against them, as they have a lot of varied removal spells that are all usually very good against your creatures. But I think against Titan, I think against these mid-range decks, you have a reasonable matchup, especially with the inclusion of a card like Realm Walker. But I may, switch back to Eldrazi Tron depending on how my day goes beforehand. Personally, I'm going to be picking up Humans for the week, but I wouldn't be surprised if basically any deck wins or top 8 this Modern Challenge this weekend. It could be Control, it could be Aggro, it could be Mid-Range and Jund, it could be Combo. I could even see Belcher coming out of the blue with it, winning it. Could be Dredge or something along those lines. So with any of those things coming forward, personally, I'm going to play Humans, but basically what I'm trying to say is you can play whatever archetype you want as long as you have a good dedicated main deck or sideboard plan against some of these big archetypes of creature aggro, Titan, and possibly some graveyard-based combo decks. Thank you guys for watching. I hope there was some information here that was useful. Make sure to give a like to the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitch and Twitter in the description below, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.